Hello and welcome back to Schlyde into Sports, live on 103.1 FM on WVLP Radio. I'm your host, Ryan Schlyde, aka Schlyde, and there was a lot of things that went down in professional sports. On this podcast, we talk about typically the trickle-down effect in college sports and the rules and regulations. We went into a lot of that last week with the executive order being passed, which I kept referring to as a bill each time I was talking about the executive order, and I had to keep correcting myself. So apologies for that. But this week, it's pretty much all professional sports. We're going to be talking about the NFL draft. That's coming up in less than a week now. That's huge, especially for IU having their first ever number one overall pick in the school's history. I mean, that's insane. It's not guaranteed just yet, but the way that things have been circulating online, Fernando training with or getting to know the Las Vegas staff, them bringing on Kirk Cousins and so on, it really seems like Fernando is going to be the number one pick that Las Vegas is looking for in their quarterback, but it doesn't seem like Fernando is probably going to start right away. We're also going to talk about Masters. That concluded on Sunday, and there was some history made there. We're also going to talk about the NBA playoffs, and we're also going to leap into Major League Baseball because we're about 16, 17 games into the season over there. Things are starting to kind of take their shape, their form, and we're starting to learn a little bit more about what these teams are looking like, which teams obviously have an early advantage before the postseason, establishing themselves early. So, yeah, with that being said, we're going to start off with the Masters. Rory McIlroy, he won his second Masters in a row that he won last year in 2025. He won this year by one stroke. He was minus 12. It was very close at the end, that last hole. It looked like he was about to choke it away. He hit it into the woods, and then he hit it into the bunker, but he was still able to finish out the hole at par, under par, and he was able to join an elite group of golfers. Now it's four golfers who have won the Masters twice in a row. This is very rare. So Jack Nicklaus, he was the first person to ever do it. He did it in 1965 and 1966. Then, almost a little more than 20 years later, Nick Faldo did it in 1989, 1990. Then, about 11, 12 years later, Tiger Woods became the third person to do it in 2001 and 2002. And now, 23 years later, Rory McIlroy becomes the fourth person to ever win the Masters twice in a row, back-to-back years in 2025 and 2026. So this is a huge historical achievement for Rory for the Masters. And there was a little bit of controversy surrounding Rory's victory because apparently people were saying that it wasn't fair that he was able to go and practice on the Augusta golf course, because since he won Masters last year, he had access to the golf course. So he's able to go and practice as many times as he pleases. And some people are looking at that as an unfair advantage. But at the end of the day, if you think about it, the Masters, like the people with the green jackets, they're an exclusive club. So if you're in the club, why not utilize the tools to guarantee your success, essentially? So I don't blame Rory at all for using the course as much as he can. Some people are also upset that he didn't go to some of the other pro tournaments leading into the Masters, but those tournaments, typically, people will go to those if they need a certain amount of points in order to participate in the Masters, and Rory didn't need that many more points to participate in the Masters, especially since he won last year, so he didn't really need to participate in those tournaments. So he was just saving himself up for Masters and practicing the course. I mean, if you've got the resources to do that, might as well. So don't really blame him for it at all. And, it seems like people like to find reasons to be mad at Rory. Don't really know why. He seems like a relatively likable guy. I don't know. I haven't really seen any sort of controversy surrounding him, so I don't really understand where the hate comes from. Maybe it's because he's just Mr. Perfect. I don't know. And I more or less made the Mr. Perfect reference because that's what my mom said when she was talking with my younger brother about the Masters tournament. She kind of made that joke. So shout out, Mom. Anyways, huge victory for Rory there. We might see him win 3 times in a row if that strategy continues. Maybe other previous Masters winners who haven't retired yet, maybe they start taking more advantage of the opportunity to practice on the Augusta National Golf Course. And maybe we see a previous winner resurface. We don't know. We'll see. Obviously, the future, there's a lot of things that can happen. And, we are influenced by what other people do at the end of the day. All right, so moving on now to the NBA. NBA playoffs are coming up relatively soon. I mean, it's still kind of far away. They start in, May, mid-May, I think, if I'm not mistaken. No. They begin April 18th. That's my mistake. But it goes on for a really long time because a lot of the series are 7-game series. I mean, you look at last year's tournament, it didn't end until about the first week of June. So the NBA playoffs go on for a while. And a lot of it is because of the play-in tournament, where you have the 7 through 10 seeds playing in to go up against the number 1 seed and number 2 seeds in their respective sides of the bracket. So the Eastern or Western side of the bracket. So right now, the Eastern Conference playoff picture goes as follows. So Detroit is number 1, which is odd to see because last year they weren't the best. They had one of the longest losing streaks, if not the longest losing streaks in the NBA. Definitely that year, possibly in history, it was pretty bad. Then you've got Boston at number 2. Jason Tatum, I believe, is back, so I think that's a large part of the reason why they're at number 2. New York Knicks, they're in the number 3 spot. They've been a lot more consistent. They've been consistently better than they have been in years past. Past 3 years, I'd say, they've been pretty good. You look at before those 3 years, they were in a bit of a slump. I mean, the fans were wearing paper bags on their heads. It was pretty bad for them. But the Knicks, I should say, are back in a place where the fan base is kind of used to. So, yeah, New York currently sitting in 3rd. Then you've got Cleveland in 4th, Toronto in 5th, and Atlanta in 6th. And Atlanta being in 6th was kind of surprising just because they traded away Trae Young, who was probably their best player, but it seems like they were able to build the team around more on the depth, which I think, good for them. They currently have the same record as the Toronto Raptors, so they could move into that 5th position, but we'll see. And the 7 through 10 seeds in the Eastern Conference, you've got the 76ers, the Magic, the Hornets, and the Heat. And the Heat, they're almost like the Pittsburgh Steelers. You pretty much always see them in the playoffs now. It's almost a guarantee that the Heat make it in. And Miami has one of the best coaches in the sport, really. It doesn't seem to matter where Miami is seated in the conference. I mean, we saw them play their way into the tournament. Then they went on, won the Eastern Conference Finals, and played the Lakers back in 2020. Arguably a Mickey Mouse championship, but still. And even before that, they made it to another championship game, which that was a little bit more recently. I believe it would have been 2 years ago now, where I believe they had to beat the Boston Celtics, and they ended up making it to the finals, but they ended up not winning. But Spoelstra is a really great coach. He's been at Miami for a long time, a very proven coach at that. They always seem to have a great team, kind of like Pittsburgh. I mean, Pittsburgh, when was the last time you've ever seen Pittsburgh Steelers have a losing record? I couldn't tell you because I don't think I've seen it. So Miami, kind of in that same boat. They're currently 43-39 right now. So yeah, again, you don't really see Miami have a losing record or really a bad season. I mean, not making the playoffs would be a bad season for them, but we've seen them make the playoffs consistently for so long now, so it's not really a surprise that they're there. For the Western Conference playoff picture, you have Oklahoma City at the top, last year's champs. No real surprise there. Then you've got San Antonio, the Spurs clinching the number 2 spot. Wemby has been balling out this year. He looks really good. They've got Denver Nuggets in 3. They have Jokic, elite team. They've got great depth. So no surprise that Denver is up there. Then you've got the Lakers at 4. The only team that really has seemed to be their kryptonite this year, at least, when it comes to getting destroyed, is the Oklahoma City Thunder. It doesn't really seem to matter if LA, or I should say the Lakers, because there's 2 teams in LA. If they're 100% or 10%, Oklahoma City always, at least this year, has just beaten them down. Doesn't matter where either, whether it's home or away. Oklahoma City just knows how to destroy the Lakers. I think Lakers are also dealing with some injuries right now. So heading into the playoffs, that could be a team to look out for as an early exit. Luka and I think Austin Reeves is injured as well. I think LeBron is also injured. Just a lot of their key players are injured right now, but because of what they did in the early parts of the season, they're sitting at 53-29. So they're probably still going to make the playoffs, but again, don't be surprised if the Lakers make an early exit. Yeah, I'm not trying to hate on the Lakers or anything. I'm just saying, you don't have the guys that you typically rely on in games. It's not a recipe for success. However, because of the timing, the Lakers are going to get used to playing with the guys that they're having on the floor now more consistently. They could develop a rhythm and could also surprise people and make it maybe to the Western Conference Finals for all we know. So yeah, I will say, even though the NBA playoffs, I'm not necessarily the biggest fan of it because of how expanded it is. There's so many teams that are in the NBA playoffs, but the thing with the NBA is that it's very much the opposite of college sports in the sense that the regular season doesn't tend to matter as much. You really just need to make it into the playoffs, and that's it, because all the players in the NBA all play at an elite level. They're all very good. So really, you just need to make the playoffs, and then you just go on your run from there. So yeah, it's very different from college sports, not even just college basketball, but just college sports in general, where in college sports, a low percentage of teams, even in March Madness, there's a low percentage of college teams that end up making it in. I mean, you look at the March Madness tournament this year, 68 total teams that make it in out of 350, 400 teams. I mean, that's not really that high of a percentage if you think about it. Same thing with college football. There's about 136 teams in FBS college football, and 12 teams make it in. So very low percentage, makes the regular season matter a lot more. But for the NBA, them expanding their playoffs does make it more exciting in the sense that there can be upsets. I mean, you look at last year with the Indiana Pacers making it all the way to the championship game. They almost take down Oklahoma City Thunder, and Halliburton tears his Achilles at the beginning of Game 7, and this was after he went on a scoring run as well, and they end up losing the series. But yeah, it can get exciting. Like, I think last year's NBA playoffs is probably the most exciting one that I've watched in a while. Number 5, sorry for that tangent, by the way. Number 5, you've got the Houston Rockets, who have clinched the 5th seed. They're right behind the Lakers. They're 52-30. Then to round out the top 6, you've got the Minnesota Timberwolves, which isn't too much of a surprise. They're a very great team, especially with Ant, as he is called. But then for the 7 through 10 seeds, you've got the Suns, the Portland Trailblazers, which kind of a surprise that Portland is in the playoff picture, just because of, they were really in the playoff picture years prior because of Dame Lillard, and they haven't really made much noise since then. And now they're in the play-in, so maybe Portland is back. Then you've got the Clippers and the Warriors. So seeing the Warriors in that 7 to 10 seed spot is very unusual, to say the least. You don't typically see the Warriors, especially when they're led by Steph Curry, being as low as a 7 to 10 seed. But I will say, like I said earlier, doesn't matter where you're at in the playoffs. All that matters is that you make it in. So don't be surprised at all if the Warriors make it past the play-in games and then they go on a run to the Western Conference Final. Wouldn't be there is a legit scenario where somehow it could be LA, the Lakers versus the Golden State Warriors in the Western Conference Finals. So I wouldn't be surprised at all. It's something that we see a lot of, or at least that we've seen a lot of, the Lakers versus the Warriors, just because of the Steph versus LeBron, and that whole thing, which has been going on for a really long time now, almost 15 years. But yeah, very fun NBA playoffs coming up, and we're gonna once we see where everybody actually does stand and stack up the way that they play their final few games, we can then start making some predictions. All right, and before we go into our break, we're going to talk a little bit about the MLB standings currently. So for the American League, on top in the American League East, you've got the Orioles and the Yankees. I'm pretty much putting them at a tie because they have the same record and winning percentage. They're both 9-7 currently. Yankees have a 5-4 winning record on the road. Orioles have had more home games, so I think maybe that's why they're on top. I'm not entirely sure what the tiebreaker is here between the Orioles and Yankees. Maybe it's conference opponents. Maybe the Orioles have played more teams in the American League East than the Yankees have, despite them having the same overall record. Then you've got Tampa Bay right behind them at 8-7, so they just haven't played as many games as the Orioles or the Yankees. Then you've got the Blue Jays down at 6-9, which kind of surprising considering where they were last year. The Blue Jays, they almost made it to the World Series. No, they did. They made it to the World Series last year to play against LA. So yeah, seeing them down there at 6-9 is a bit surprising, to say the least. Then rounding out the American League East, you've got the Boston Red Sox sitting at 6-10. So not great for Boston, but again, it's still very early in the MLB season. There's still a lot that can change and that can happen. MLB is baseball has a very long season. It goes on throughout the entire summer and it goes into the fall. So it's a incredibly long season. So even though I'm saying that, Boston is down there 6-10, Blue Jays 6-9, sucks that they have losing records right now and that they're at the bottom of their standings within their league, but they could easily jump up into the top at some point this season because of how early it is right now. For the American League Central, you've got the Guardians in first, kind of tied with the Twins, very similar scenario with the Orioles, Yankees in the East. But for American League Central, you've got Guardians and Twins both at 10-7. Then you've got the Tigers and Royals behind them at 7-9. And then you've got the White Sox at 6-10. So not this, I would say, is a lot less surprising. I think Kansas City being down there in 4th in the league is a bit surprising. They've been consistently pretty good in the MLB, so seeing them down there is, again, surprising, but they could just as easily move up into the 2nd spot or the 1st spot by the time the season's over. There's still so much time left in the season. Then the American League West, you've got the Rangers at the top by themselves at 9-7. You've got the Oakland A's at 8-8. The Angels 8-9. Mariners 8-9 as well. And then you've got the Astros at 6-11. And Astros being down there at 6-11, very surprising considering that about, I believe it was 4 or 5 years ago, where, I mean, one of those World Series wins was controversial to say the least, but they did win 2 World Series, and now they're down at the bottom of their league at 6-11. And they actually have the worst record in the American League as a whole. So, yeah, the Astros need to get it together. Moving into the National League, we've got the National League East standings. We've got the Atlanta Braves on top, 10-7, on top of the mountain by themselves. Then you've got the Miami Marlins, 9-8, the Phillies at 8-8, Nationals 7-9, and the Mets at 7-10. Not too surprising. Except maybe the Mets. I would have thought maybe the Mets would have been a little bit higher. Moving on to the National League Central, you've got the Pittsburgh Pirates at 10-6. It's been a while since we've seen Pittsburgh at the top within their league, which, about time. Baseball, I don't know why, but MLB is kind of fun when Pittsburgh is good. Sometimes when, some people will say, oh, college football is better when Alabama's good, or when Mississippi is good, or something like that. That's kind of what it feels like with Pittsburgh. It's kind of more fun when Pittsburgh is good in the MLB. But moving on, then you've got the Reds behind them at 9-7, Brewers at 8-7, Cardinals at 8-8, and the Cubs at 7-9. So it's a very tight race in the National League Central. Not too surprising. Again, early season, but you look at the team standings, and the Brewers were at the top of the National League last year. The Cubs were in 2nd. I believe the Cardinals were in 3rd. So really, the standings right now in comparison to last year are kind of flipped on their head. So don't be surprised if the standings change drastically as the year goes on. Just looking at this right now, it looks like it's going to be a pretty hard-fought battle for that top spot. Then rounding out the National League, we've got the National League West. Dodgers have a sizable lead over 2nd place, the San Diego Padres. Dodgers are at 12-4. Best record right now in the entire MLB. Padres behind them at 10-6. Then you've got the Arizona Diamondbacks at 9-8. And then you've got the Rockies and Giants at the bottom, tied at 6-10. So, LA, the Dodgers, no surprise here, have a stranglehold right now on the National League West. They've been consistently dominant for the past, I couldn't even tell you how long, probably 7 years, 8 years. Either in the World Series or in the playoffs, they just consistently make it. They consistently produce good teams. They pour a lot of money into their teams as well. So, again, LA being where they're at, 12-4, not too surprising. They were also, they did win the World Series last year, so not really surprised that they're at where they're at. They didn't really lose a lot of key players. They didn't, they also picked up some players in free agency. So LA in a very good spot right now. They also have elite coaching over there as well. So again, LA Dodgers success, not too much of a surprise to me, and it really shouldn't be too much of a surprise to anybody. So, yeah. All right, with that being said, we're going to take a short break to hear a message from our sponsor. This broadcast is brought to you by Authentic Impact, a Northwest Indiana executive coaching practice working with family businesses to ensure their legacy. When you started your business, you made a promise to do things differently, better than anyone else. Over time, as the business grows, that promise can get diluted or even lost. Penny Schlyde at Authentic Impact helps family business owners reignite that promise, weaving it into team engagement, performance, and hiring so your passion becomes the heartbeat of your company again. Learn more at authentic-impact-coaching.com. Okay, so NFL draft. So here's what I'm going to do for the NFL draft. We're going to look at the mock draft board that was published by Bleacher Report. This draft board was published today, April 14th. So this is the most updated draft board that we're going to be looking at here, unless you're listening on Friday or possibly Wednesday, because draft boards, they change frequently. But here's the most updated mock draft board that we have. We're going to look at it all the way down, at least for the first round, so picks 1 through 32, and then we're going to compare it to what teams need, or how it fits their team's needs. So, number 1, I don't think this is really a surprise to anybody. Las Vegas, Fernando Mendoza getting picks there. Again, not really a surprise. Then you've got New York Jets picking Arvell Reese from Ohio State, an edge. Not too surprised. I think New York probably could have also gone the quarterback route. They could have picked up Ty Simpson. There's been a lot of criticism of this quarterback class, so maybe having the Jets picking Arvell Reese might actually be a better move. Also wouldn't be too surprising either, just because Aaron Glenn, the coach of the Jets, is a very defensive-minded coach, and considering that they had 0 interceptions last year, I'm sure he is probably wanting to beef up that defense a lot more than where it's at right now. Bleacher Report has Arizona Cardinals picking edge David Bailey from Texas Tech. Elite player. I mean, really, the entire Texas Tech defense last year was just absolutely insane. So, great pick for the or that would be a great pick for the Cardinals there. I think they would fit in. I mean, Cardinals have so many needs, it's kind of insane. But we'll get into that later. Bleacher Report has Tennessee Titans picking Jeremiah Love from Notre Dame, the running back. And that would be a huge pickup for Tennessee. I think Jeremiah Love has an elite set of skills. He's really fast. He's agile. I mean, we've seen him throughout the entire year, just not even just the entire year, but really his entire college football career, hurdling people. I mean, this dude is elusive. He is hard to tackle. So this would be a huge pick for Tennessee, and I think if Tennessee was to pick him up, I think it would be a very interesting combo with Cam Ward, because I think Tennessee would be able to utilize Jeremiah Love as a wide receiver as well, and maybe a blocker as well. Because I mean, Jeremiah Love he's a huge dude. So I think I think Fernando is probably going to get picked first. I think whoever gets Jeremiah Love, that's a steal for whoever gets him. I mean, he's a really good player. Then Bleacher Report has New York Giants picking Carnell Tate, wide receiver from Ohio State. And I think this would be a good move for them. It would beef up it would give Jackson Dart more weapons to throw to, or whoever is playing quarterback. I mean, based on the way it looks right now, it seems like it's going to be Jackson Dart at the QB position, at the helm of the Giants offense. So if that's not the case, I would kind of be surprised, but we'll see. It'll be a second year. But having a weapon like Carnell Tate, young wide receivers tend to do really well when they break into the NFL. I'm not entirely sure why, but at least, recently they hit their stride almost right away. So I think Cardinal Tate, if he got picked up by the Giants or anybody else, would be an instant impact player. They've got Cleveland Browns at 6. Bleacher Report has them picking up Caden Proctor, offensive tackle from Alabama. I think he's a solid player, big dude. He very productive player. I mean, I don't really know what else I could say to boost him up, but having an offensive tackle there to help protect Shedeur Sanders or whoever is going to be quarterback at Cleveland, because I don't even think Cleveland knows who's going to be their quarterback. But yeah, having a strong offensive line is key to quarterback production. So I think Caden Proctor would be a great pickup for Cleveland right there. Then Washington, Bleacher Report has them picking up Sonny Styles, linebacker from Ohio State. Very notable, really, the entire time he was at Ohio State. He was a key player over there. He was one of the veterans that was helping lead the historical Ohio State defense. I mean, that defense was absolutely elite last year. So I think this would be a great pickup for Washington. But then you've got New Orleans Saints at 8. And Bleacher Report has them picking up edge Ruben Bain Jr. from Miami. That would be a huge, huge pickup as well. Extremely productive, very versatile. I remember people were concerned about his hand size for whatever reason, but I mean, people were concerned about that with Joe Burrow, and look at Joe Burrow. So I don't know. Number 9, Kansas City Chiefs. Bleacher Report has them picking up Spencer Fano, offensive tackle from Utah. That would be a great pickup for them. I think Patrick Mahomes does need some help on that offensive line. They have a pretty old offensive line, so getting an offensive tackle up higher in the draft, I think, will serve Kansas City very well. At 10, you've got Cincinnati Bengals. Bleacher Report has them picking up Mansour Delane from LSU, center back. I think that'd be a decent pickup. I mean, I'm not sure if that's the direction I would go, but we'll get into that later. Miami, number 11. Bleacher Report has them picking up safety Caleb Downs. I think that would be a great pickup there. Caleb Downs was arguably Ohio State's best graduating or leaving player, or player that was going to declare for the draft. I would not dare say best player just because of Jeremiah Smith, but definitely I'd say he was their best defensive player. So I think that would be a good pickup for Miami. Miami's kind of in a weird spot because they kind of know what they're doing for quarterback. Their offense is, I don't know. Miami's just an enigma to me, at least going into this year. I don't really know what to make of Miami, in all honesty. But moving on to number 12, Dallas Cowboys. Bleacher Report has them picking up Jermod McCoy from Tennessee, center back. I think that would be a pretty good pickup for them. They need some help on defense, so I think Jermod would have a very instant impact on when he becomes a Dallas Cowboy, assuming that this Bleacher Report draft board goes exactly as it is written. Then LA Rams have the 13th pick. They got it from Atlanta, and Bleacher Report has them picking up offensive tackle Francis Maigoa from Miami. And I think that'd be a solid pick for them as well. I mean, beefing up that, kind of like with Kansas City. I mean, Patrick Mahomes, he's not that old, but, just giving him extra protection just because of some of the injuries that he's had, I think is important. Matthew Stafford, he's one of the oldest quarterbacks in the NFL currently, so I think, upgrading that offensive line to protect him more, give him more time to throw, because he is an elite passer, I think would be incredibly useful for LA to do. Baltimore, they have the 14th pick, and Bleacher Report has them picking IOL Vega Iowan from Penn State. So inner offensive line. I think that would be huge for them. Elite blocker. I think he could create some opportunities for Derrick Henry or Lamar Jackson. I'm not entirely sure if that's the direction that Baltimore is going to go, simply because they have a new head coach. So I think that's one of the picks where we're probably going to see something different, but it really depends on what 1 through 13 do above them and whether or not Baltimore trades up or trades down in picks right before the draft. I mean, we see stuff like that happen a lot. So, yeah, it's not very certain, but I wouldn't be surprised at all if Baltimore either traded up or down or picked somebody else. Then Tampa Bay is at 15. Bleacher Report has them picking tight end Keon Sadiq from Oregon, elite tight end from Oregon. He was one of their key offensive players, one of their most productive players, I might add, arguably the best tight end this year in college football. I think him on Tampa Bay he would have an instant impact. Tampa already has elite passers on their team, at least at the wide receiver position. So bringing in an elite tight end like Sadiq, I think would be an extremely good pickup for Tampa Bay if they want to maintain, at the bare minimum, maintain what they currently have. Detroit Lions at 17. Bleacher Report has them picking up offensive tackle Blake Miller from Clemson. Now, Clemson, they had a pretty interesting year. I'm not really sure how else to put that, but it was definitely interesting to say the least. Very much a down year for Clemson, but Blake Miller was arguably one of their better players. I'm not really sure if he was entirely at fault for how Clemson performed last year. It really seemed like Cade Klubnik was not himself last year at all. But I think Detroit picking him up would be good. I think it fills a need for Detroit just because of the injuries that they seem to keep having, at least the past couple of years, both on defense and on the offensive front. So picking up a guy like Blake Miller, even just to build up the depth, I think is a good pick for Detroit there. Then Minnesota Vikings have the 18th pick. Bleacher Report has them picking up safety Dylan Steinman from Oregon. And Oregon had a really great defense last year. It was able to kind of hold Indiana off a little bit. Indiana just had an absolutely insane offense, so I'm not really faulting Oregon's defense necessarily for not stopping them, but I think it would be a decent pickup for them. I guess it fills one of their needs. They do definitely have needs on defense, but I think you could argue that Minnesota could go wide receiver, maybe, just to add some depth to that, at least more depth to that position. Justin Jefferson, I feel like he carries a bulk of the load on the wide receiver front. So really, Minnesota, they definitely need some help on defense, but I wouldn't be too surprised if they picked up a wide receiver, just kind of improve that offense, because I think, only having Justin Jefferson really to throw to, it's not great for a first-year quarterback. Now, technically, it was JJ's second year, but he didn't play the year before last year, so really, it was his first year, but just having more options for a quarterback like JJ McCarthy to throw to, I think, would be good for him at least, and good for that offense. But, they definitely, again, like I said before, they definitely need help on defense. So I wouldn't be surprised at all if they end up going through this pick. Wouldn't be a bad pick by any means, but yeah. Number 19, Carolina Panthers. Bleacher Report has them picking wide receiver Jordan Tyson from Arizona State. And he, I think, is one of the more underrated players that is heading into this draft. He was really good, at least when he was on Arizona State. Kind of in a not great situation just because Sam Leavitt didn't play the entire season. So we didn't really get to see, I don't think we really got to see the most of what we could of Jordan Tyson, but is what it is. I think that would be a huge addition for Carolina just because they already have elite wide receivers over there. Young elite wide receivers, I might add. So Carolina, I think, is on their way to becoming one of the youngest teams in the NFL. Green Bay is also one of the youngest teams in the NFL right now, but Carolina hasn't really seen a lot of success. I mean, they almost won their first playoff game in 9 years, not since the Cam Ward era of Carolina. They really fell off a cliff after Cam Ward left. And even when he was there, in his later years, Carolina just kind of fell off a cliff. So they're moving in the right direction, and I think a pickup on wide receiver just to give another elite player for Bryce Young to throw to, I think would be great for that offense to at least be able to keep up with offenses like the LA Rams and other high-powered, even the Bears too. Both those teams have elite offenses now. So I think Jordan Tyson would be an underrated but needed pickup for the Carolina Panthers. Dallas Cowboys have the 20th pick from Green Bay. I think that was from the, what was that trade? Why am I blanking on that trade? You guys know exactly what trade I'm talking about here with the Bears and Green Bay. So if I said the name, you guys would not be surprised at all, to say the least. But Dallas, they have the 20th pick, and according to Bleacher Report, they are going to pick up defensive lineman Keldrick Falk from Auburn. It wasn't too bad. I mean, Auburn's defense was extremely good. It was a large part of the reason why Auburn was even in contention with top teams like Oklahoma, at least in the SEC. So I think this is also another pick that is underrated. Could see him even going earlier than 20, but we'll see. Then you've got Pittsburgh Steelers at the 21st pick. They, according to Bleacher Report, would pick up wide receiver KC Concepcion from Texas A&M. I'd say he was their best weapon this year. So I think that would be a pretty decent pickup by Pittsburgh. He's not bad, but I personally probably would have picked somebody else. And this might just be my bias for IU. I probably would have gone Omar Cooper, but that's just me. Anyways, moving on to the 22nd pick, you've got the Los Angeles Chargers. According to Bleacher Report, they would pick up inner offensive lineman Chase Bisontis, also from Texas A&M, and wouldn't be a bad pick. Justin Herbert, he is a injury-prone quarterback. It feels like he's injured all the time. Chargers are constantly living in hypotheticals of, if so-and-so didn't get injured, blah, blah, blah. There's always something with this Chargers organization. Don't know why, but that's just kind of how it is. So picking up a offensive lineman like Chase Bisontis, I think, could be helpful for the Chargers at the very least. But yeah. Moving on to pick number 23, Philadelphia Eagles. Bleacher Report has him picking up edge Malachi Lawrence from UCF. This is kind of an interesting pick. at least, school-wise. I mean, UCF, they didn't do too bad this year, but I will say they definitely spoiled a couple of teams' seasons. So part of that probably because of Malachi Lawrence, if we're being completely honest here. So decent pick by the Eagles. They always draft well. So if they do pick up Malachi Lawrence, I'm honestly just going to automatically assume that it's a good pick because they know how to draft. Like, they can draft really well. That's how they've been able to maintain consistent success over the past 6 years. So really ever since they won that first Super Bowl against the Patriots. So yeah, not really surprised. Not necessarily not really surprised, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Eagles did pick up Malachi Lawrence because he was that much of an impact player for UCF. But yeah, a 24th pick, Cleveland got it from Jacksonville in a trade, and it has Cleveland picking up Omar Cooper Jr., which I think that would be a great pick for Cleveland. I think having an elite weapon like Cooper for Shedeur Sanders, or again, whoever is leading the Cleveland offense, because it doesn't seem like they know who is leading that offense. So whoever's leading the Cleveland offense, if Cleveland does pick up Omar Cooper Jr., he is a elite wide receiver. He always finds a way to get the ball in his hands. He's fast. He's elusive. He's able to create space for himself. He has insane spatial awareness. I mean, you just look at the Penn State game with that final catch. I mean, you have to have insane spatial awareness in order to know how to put your feet down to keep them in bounds to complete that catch. I mean, come on. Elite wide receiver. 25th pick, Chicago Bears. Bleacher Report has them picking up safety Emmanuel McNeil-Warren from Toledo. That would be an interesting pick. I think that would be the first pick for a mid-major school. So he'd be the highest ranked, or he'd be the highest picked mid-major, or highest picked player that is coming out of a mid-major, assuming that he does get drafted at 25th. But not a bad player. I will say that much. I think, we've seen players from the mid-majors shine in the NFL before. I mean, you look at Reed Blankenship from the Eagles. He was from mid-major school, and he helps them win a Super Bowl. So, yeah, I mean, anything it doesn't necessarily matter if you're in a mid-major or power conference. So, yeah, if you can play well and you can transfer what you're doing at the college level to the NCAA level, or to the NFL level, to the NFL level, then you'll be good. Buffalo has the 26th pick, and Bleacher Report has them picking up edge Gabe Jacas from Illinois. Not a bad pick. I mean, Illinois' defense wasn't the best this year, so not entirely sure if that's who I would go for. I think he does fill, if I'm not mistaken, he does fill a need that they do have. They do need an edge. I mean, personally, if I was Buffalo, I would have gone the wide receiver route, but that's more because there's been this almost stigma with Josh Allen not having a lot of elite wide receivers to throw to. I think if Buffalo did pick up a wide receiver in the first round, I think they would have an immediate impact on the roster. But again, Bleacher Report says that they are likely to pick up Gabe Jacas. So, I don't know. San Francisco 49ers have the 27th pick, and they're projected to pick up offensive tackle Monroe Freeling from Georgia. Now, Georgia, they consistently produce physical players on both the defensive and offensive lines. So that would be a great pickup for the 49ers, especially to give Brock Purdy more protection. Can never go wrong with protecting your quarterback. And especially after last year where Purdy got injured and so many of their other elite offensive players got injured as well. Kittle got injured. McCaffrey got injured. Like, it was a nightmare being a 49ers fan. I'm not a 49ers fan, but I'm just speaking for the 49ers fans out there. It was just not fun to be a 49ers fan. Houston Texans, they have the 28th pick, and they're projected by Bleacher Report to pick up offensive tackle Max Enacor, yeah, from Arizona State. Not too bad of a pick. Obviously, being down in the 28th spot, some of the options that maybe you would want to pick aren't available. So I think Max could be that next best option, but Houston might not even pick him up. When you look at the needs that Houston has, they need a defensive lineman, offensive tackle, or inner offensive lineman. So, he's an offensive tackle. They might move him into the inner offensive tackle position, but not entirely sure. Again, not necessarily. Either way, they need to build up the line somehow. I do think they probably should build up the offensive line first, just because their defense was so good last year, and I don't think they're losing a lot of players from that defense as far as I know. I might have to double check. I haven't really checked up on NFL free agency in a minute, but they definitely need to have more protection for CJ Stroud, just because last year he did not have a great year. It was worse than the year before. His first year was definitely his best. He broke out in his first year, but ever since then, he just hasn't been the same. I don't know if it's because he got hit and is afraid to get hit or what, but he just has not been the same. So maybe offensive tackle is what Texans need. They could have easily gone offensive lineman, though, I think. But again, this is just a projection, so we'll see. Kansas City has the 29th pick from the Rams, and they're projected to pick up edge TJ Parker from Clemson. He was good. I will say that much. Clemson's defense was good. They had a great defense. So I think picking up TJ Parker, I think, is a huge pickup for Kansas City there. They have kind of needed a little bit of help on defense, at least last year they did. Year before that, their defense was really good. But, just kind of keeping that defense built up, I think would be great for Kansas City. But, yeah. Miami, they have the 30th pick from Denver. And they're projected to pick Avion Terrell from Clemson. Center back. Again, Clemson's defense was really good, so I think this would be a pretty solid pickup for Miami. Again, I feel like Miami has a ton of different needs that they could fill on according to NFL.com. It says their needs are wide receiver, center back, and offensive tackle. So this would fill one of their needs, but maybe that's something they could have picked up earlier just because, they filled safety, but safety wasn't really a need that Miami had. So I think they probably should have gone, or assuming, based on these projections, I should say, just assuming that these projections are exactly what's going to happen, I probably would have gone center back first and then safety. But Miami might not do that just because for that earlier pick that they had, it was Caleb Downs, and Caleb Downs is an elite player, so they might not, I think Bleacher Report is assuming that they would pick up Caleb Downs just because of how elite a player he is, and if they were to let him slide down, then somebody else would pick him up possibly an NFC team like Tampa Bay or Minnesota or Carolina, or maybe an AFC team, because they're in the AFC, so maybe Baltimore could pick him up. You look at Buffalo could pick him up, a division rival in Buffalo could pick him up. Cleveland could pick him up. There's a lot that can go wrong if you let a player like Caleb Downs slide too far in the draft. For the 31st pick, it's New England Patriots, and they're projected to pick up edge Zion Young from Missouri. And Missouri had a great defense last year. I'll give them that. I mean, it wasn't enough to compete against like Alabama or other playoff teams, or at least to win against playoff teams, but Zion Young was probably their best defensive player. So it would make sense for New England to pick him up as well. An edge is one of their primary needs. They also need an offensive tackle and wide receiver. I don't think that they would go wide receiver too early, simply because they have Stephon Diggs already. So they might wait a little bit on the wide receiver position, but I think Zion Young would be a good pickup for New England. I think he would probably fit into their culture pretty well because he's physical, very physical player on that edge. So, and New England, led by Vrabel, is a very physical team. They thrive on physicality. That's just what his team is known for. So I think picking up a player like Zion Young would be a huge thing for the culture. He'd be able to fit into that culture very quickly. And the final pick for the first round, we've got the Seattle Seahawks, and Bleacher Report has them projected to pick up center back Chris Johnson from San Diego State. So this would be the second mid-major school represented in the first round. Chris Johnson wasn't bad. San Diego State arguably should have been in the Mountain West Conference Championship game. I will say that much. And a large part of that is because of their defense and because of Chris Johnson. So I think this could be a steal for Seattle. I mean, we've seen them kind of thrive in those 20s, teens in the first round, at least recently. So wouldn't be surprised at all if they were to pick up a player like Chris Johnson and able to develop him into an elite center back in the NFL and have him be an immediate impact player. Yeah, it does fit one of their primary needs. They do need a center back, running back, and edge. So I think beefing up that defense, considering that their offense is already so incredibly beefed up, is important. I think just going defense first is huge. And defenses in the NFL are starting to get really good. So that's why we're starting to see more defensive players getting drafted earlier, because they want, NFL teams want their defenses to be peak. They want them to be good, because it's been a lot more difficult for offenses to keep up with the defense. So yeah, with that being said, that's all that we have time for today. Next week, we're going to go over NFL draft. We're going to look at the NBA playoffs. If there's any news regarding college sports with the executive order, if there's a lawsuit, or if somebody else speaks out about it that you guys should know about or need to know about that has an impact on that story, I will keep you updated with that as well. If there's any other sporting events in the season that you want me to talk about on the show, let me know. Head over to the Spotify, Millions.co, YouTube, Patreon, other podcasting platforms, and let me know in the comments over there. Or you can head over to my Twitter at Schlyde to let me know what you guys want me to talk about over there as well. And yeah, we're also going to be talking about MLB as well, because again, that season is starting to ramp up a little bit. So that being said, I'll see you guys on the next one. Schlyde out.